right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper pre-party show, and we are getting ready to talk about prepping for unemployment, right? So obviously, everybody, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you know that right now Elon Musk and Doge are just like slashing like crazy all these federal jobs, and so there's a lot of people that are going to be struggling with this right now. I myself have experienced this, and I'll talk about my personal experiences with this. It's a terrible thing when you lose your job. It really, really stinks. And I'll give you my personal experiences with this. But the main purpose of that is of tonight's video is to give you some ideas for prepping for fixing a little technical issue, prepping for unemployment or job loss, right? And this is a subject that we sometimes talk about on this channel. I've talked about it before, but obviously right now we need to hit on this again. So let's say how to chat first. We'll go over our rules, and there is a poll for those of you who are watching on YouTube. There's a poll at the top. Please go ahead and vote in that poll. I'll try to remember to come back to it at the very end and see how you voted. Okay, Lazarus Long, it's good to see you. Appreciate you, Virginia Bushcrafter. Coffee first. Oh yeah, thank you. So for those of you tuning in, this goes for you too, Instagram. For those of you tuning in, Coffee First and I are going to be live on her channel tomorrow. We're going to be talking about mental health. So 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you are subscribed to Coffee First, Then Speak. Coffee First, if you can put your channel link in the chat a couple times, so that way if there's anybody here that's not subscribed, they can go ahead and subscribe over and set bell notifications for that. But we'll be live on her channel tomorrow night at 8 p.m. talking about mental health issues. Okay. And she does a great live stream. All right, so let's see. Scott Hummer, thank you. You were the first one I saw here in chat. Coffee First, of course. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Can't vote in the poll. I need a fifth thought. Still. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I'll give you my opinion too, and I don't want to sway people's opinions. Vote how you would vote. But I'll tell you my thoughts on this in just a second. Lazarus Long, Virginia Bushcrafters, good to see you both. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a good Friday. Orlando Prepper, it's good to see you. Cut your live stream show. Oh man, you didn't have to do that. I mean, I know we all of us in the community that are friends, we try not to run over each other. I appreciate that, but you definitely didn't have to do that. Thank you. Utah Mike, it's good to see you. I have my brain laid off every Friday. Yeah, it can happen, man. And my dad worked construction, specifically sheet metal, and there was a few times where he was out of work too. And so I definitely knew what that was like growing up. OG, it's good to see you. How you doing? NYC OG. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're having a good night. Thank you everybody for joining us. Demon Man Dan, thank you for Demo Man Dan. Sorry, not Demon Man, Demo Man Dan. Thank you for Demo Man Don. I'll get it right, I promise. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. All right. Looks like I got everybody that was popping into chat. Thank you so much. If you're lurking in chat, don't be afraid to say hi. We're a friendly group here. We only have a couple rules, which is basically be kind to each other. No racism, no sexism. It's okay to disagree, but just don't be a jerk, right? Like, if you have something to say, if you disagree with me or anybody, just make your points. You don't have to be like, Sarge, you're stupid. Your chat is stupid. Your live stream is stupid. Don't do that. Tell me why you don't like it. So be constructive. Maybe there is something I am doing wrong, and I appreciate good feedback. All right. All right. So that's it for intros. Let's go ahead and get into the topic. So first, let me give you my opinion on this. As somebody who has sometimes worked in different forms of government and has worked alongside government, and I've talked about this before, how I've helped certain politicians in their campaigns and things like this. There is a lot of waste in government, right? Like anybody who tries to tell you that there's not is not telling the truth. They're fibbing. There is a lot of waste in government, and there is a lot of nepotism. And the way this works is, and sometimes it comes out in the news, but most of the time it doesn't, is if somebody is in a high position, like a governor or something like that, it can happen on the local level too. They'll formulate a committee, like this is the task force to ensure that highway lines are painted the correct shade of white. Not kidding. There's stuff like that out there. And then they appoint their nephew or niece, and it's like a lifetime appointment of they're getting, sometimes it's $50,000 a year. Sometimes it's a couple $100,000 a year. Sometimes it's a couple $1,000,000 a year to do these stupid, wasteful tasks that were, these committees are formed out of nepotism. This is real. This happens. And that stuff all needs to go. That's your money that's being wasted, and it's sick and it's gross and it needs to go. So in that regard, I do support a complete audit of federal budget and jobs and get rid of all that crap, drain the swamp, literally, right? That being said, there are the vast majority of people in jobs working for FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, whatever, are good, hardworking people. And VA, and I'll even say IRS, like I know people who worked for the IRS, and I know the people that I've known in those positions are good, hardworking people. They're getting cut too. And I'm not trying to sway you, and that's really not the purpose of this video at all. So vote how you want to vote. That's not what I'm doing here. You're free to disagree with me. Just giving you my thoughts. I think it's being a bit too hasty, and people are getting hurt in the process of it. And my preference would be, not that I get a say in any of this, I have to stay within my circle that I control, but my preference would be for them to slow it down and actually do a full audit and find out like what people do. Then you make the cuts to those wasteful jobs and that wasteful spending, right? So the way this is typically done in the private sector, and those of you who work in the private sector, this is gonna sound familiar. The way that it works in the private sector is you have consultants come in and they'll audit the entire agency for weeks, sometimes longer, sometimes months. And it is more costly to do it that way, but you avoid all this cutting and slashing of jobs that are kind of vital, right? So make no mistake, when we cut some of these jobs, we are going to pay a price for this down the road. What that's going to look like, I don't know. Maybe some of our intelligence gets compromised and puts us at an even greater security risk than we're already at. I know friends in the VA that are therapists that are really hardworking therapists. If they lose their jobs, then our veterans are going to have less services, and they're going to see if they get therapy at all, it's going to be less frequent. So there's concerns I have for things like that. Again, just my opinion. You can disagree. The voters decided, right? So this is what the American voters chose. So we got to kind of see this through and see what happens with it, right? So vote in the poll. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, head over to YouTube and vote in the poll. Let me know what you think. Again, it's okay to disagree with me. I don't have all the answers, and I certainly don't have any control over the situation. Cold-hearted bastard, thank you for letting me know you're around. Appreciate you. If anybody's lurking, yeah, don't forget to say hi. We don't bite. We're pretty friendly here. All right. But let go after some big tarts is after 30. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, Utah Mike. A lot of people have said that. Was that like a favor to somebody? Should be investigated. All of it. Like, there's no reason why we can't audit all of these agencies and figure out where the abuse and waste is. That's probably a good idea. I think most Americans would say if there's fraudulent nepotism kind of stuff going on, I think most Americans would say, yeah, we don't need a task force to determine the proper shade of white for a highway. Let's let the highway department for that state handle that. We already have people that handle that, right? You don't need to appoint some politician's nephew or niece to get a $50,000 a year kickback to do that job. It's completely bogus. That stuff should be gone. All right. Again, just my opinion. If you like that stuff, that's fine. You tell us. Let us know that you're perfectly okay with that. Okay. All right. So let's get into the big part of the big meat and potatoes of this. So years ago, I was managing a program. This was not a federal program or state program. I was managing a program that was privately funded by an endowment fund. And this endowment fund, the people who managed that decided that they wanted to allocate those resources, that money, elsewhere. Okay. I didn't have a say in this. I knew that it was coming. I was under NDA, so I couldn't talk about it with anybody. But I knew this was coming. And the end result of this was a $5 million program that I was managing, where I had 50 staff that I had hired and trained. Well, I had hired and trained most of them, not all of them. I had to lay them off and then accept a layoff myself. Right. And I'll be honest with you, it sucked. It was probably one of the worst days of my life. And I thought I would be able to get rehired somewhere pretty quick because I've always had pretty good luck. I interview very well. I have a very strong resume, and I've always had really good luck of getting hired really fast. It didn't happen this time. So I was out of work for 6 months, not for lack of trying. I was putting out resumes, making calls, cold calling to businesses, everything that I could do to try to get hired, to the point where I was getting to the point where I was going to have to probably take something outside of my field just to have some income coming into the house. Right. So we'll talk about unemployment here in a second, and all that stuff. I got pretty depressed. It stinks. It I can only speak to it as a male. I'm sure it stinks equally bad for a woman, but for a male, there is now my wife and my ex-wife have also had their own incomes, right? So it's not like I was like the only breadwinner for the family, but you still have, as a guy, you still have this like pride and thing that goes along with like, I'm supposed to be providing for my family, and I'm supposed to be able to pay the bills, and I'm supposed to be able to put food on the table, right? So like all of that comes into play. And again, I'm sure women have a similar experience. I'm just can only comment from the guy's side because that was my experience. And so I got pretty depressed. I gained a ton of weight. Um, Probably that's the heaviest that I ever had gotten in my life. To be honest, I probably should have been in therapy at that time. I wasn't because I didn't have health insurance, couldn't afford to go therapy, right? And as in retrospect, like I had to dip into savings and all that. We'll get into all that. In retrospect, maybe I think there's things I could have done to better prepare for that scenario, and I have since. And eventually, you dig your way out once you get back to work. It takes a while because I had to use some debt and things like that to stay afloat so that we didn't lose our house. But yeah, it was a tough time in my life. I'm not going to lie. In retrospect, I did gain some things from that, and it helps me to have empathy for people who are going through that, because it really can happen to anyone. And if you don't think so, I want you to remember that we are on the verge of developing AI for just about every sector of employment. Okay. Just about every sector of employment. There will be AI teachers. There will be AI nurses. There will be AI therapists. There will be AI construction workers. There will be AI truck drivers. There will be AI just about everything you can think of. There's AI surgeons already existing, right? So if you haven't experienced what this is like yet, just wait. It's coming. It's coming because we're going to be entering into a period of humanity where most of humanity is going to be displaced from the workforce. And I don't know what that's going to look like, other than we all need to be financially prepping as best we can, building as many skills as you can, building as much self-sufficiency as you can. Okay. But it is coming. And I think sooner than I had hoped. My hope that this would be like another 25 years or whatever, I think it's going to be much sooner than that. I think it's going to be, I can only guess. I think within 5 years, you're going to start seeing massive downsizing in all sectors. There will be almost no jobs that are immune to this. Almost none. So humble thyself if you are thinking like, haha, these federal workers, feeding off the taxpayer, blah, 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 blah. Humble thyself, because I promise you, you're going to experience this too at some point. All right. Orlando Prepper. F-35 is a piece of poop that is not needed. Evening, everybody. Yes, good evening. I think I missed a little something in chat there. So with those those military industrial contracts, I think sometimes there is a little bit of, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think there's, some nepotism and things like that that go along with that. There's some handshakes behind closed doors. You can read into that however you want. Okay. I am not going to excuse any specific company because I can't back that up, and I certainly don't want a lawsuit. So you just go do your own due diligent research on how these military contracts are awarded and decide for yourself. Hey, Angie Hart, it's good to see you. Virginia Bushcraft, there is already in development AI for pilots. There will be self-flying planes. 100%. That's coming. 100%. Sorry. We're all going to get hit with this. Just about everyone. I once upon a time I thought that a therapist, they'll never be able to make an AI therapist. It's already happening. And when you understand therapy, people say, well, yeah, you need that human component. Is it human therapist? Yeah, I agree with you. But here's the thing. If we create, let's say that your digital therapist is so realistic that it looks like me, we program it with a little bit of personality, and we program it with because basically therapy is a formula, right? And there's patterns of behavior. After 27 years of doing this, I can usually predict what somebody's about to tell me based upon how a sentence starts. Or if they tell me my husband or wife was doing this, I can finish that sentence. I know where it goes because there's patterns of human behavior. And the formula for correcting those things is basically understanding how thoughts, feelings, and behaviors interact in that triangle. I'm oversimplifying it right now because it would take a whole hour to get into just the beginnings of that, but it's formulaic and absolutely can be programmed into a machine that can repeat exactly what I'm doing in therapy. So what about that human component of it? Well, what do we know about placebo effect? If you are talking to a digital representation of a person and it has a little bit of personality, at some point it's like virtual reality. Your brain gets convinced enough that it's real, and that's what all it takes to get the success. So AI therapy is going to happen, and AI therapy is going to be available to you 24/7, and it's probably going to be cheaper than it is to come see me. It's just the reality, folks. I wish I could tell you different because this is going to affect me personally, but that's just the reality. It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. So if a therapist, which completely relies on that human to human connection, can be replaced by a machine, just about anything can. Nurses, teachers, you name it. It will happen. It will happen. Yeah, it's department is grant funded. So yeah, those federal grants, people are worried about how that's going to get impacted by all this stuff too. So I don't know. Here's the thing. Doge is just getting started, folks, and there seems to be no desire by the people who probably could slow this down to slow it down. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think people need to be prepared for the possibility that you could lose your job. I don't think Congress is coming to your rescue, or if they even have the power to stop this. And the cabinet if you watch the meeting this week, the cabinet's not going to stop this. And Donald Trump's not going to stop this. He basically backed him up in that cabinet meeting and said anyone who disagrees with what Elon Musk is doing is going to be booted out of this cabinet. I'm paraphrasing, but so he's got his boys back. This is the reality that we live in. If you are in one of these jobs, or if your job is dependent on federal funding, you need to be thinking about this stuff and making your preparations now. All right, enough talk about all that. Let's go into some ideas here. How do we do this? So the first thing you should do, and hopefully you've already gotten ahead of this, is start building your emergency fund, right? How much do you need to have? Well, on average, when a person goes unemployed, it takes 6 months to find suitable reemployment. 6 months. So 6 months, I would say 6 months aiming for like what's going to pay your mortgage or your rent, what's going to pay your groceries, your electricity, and any life-saving medications that you need to be on. Okay. Everything else is cuttable, right? You like Netflix. I like Netflix. Guess what? It's not a necessity. When you get into this mode, you have to think about it like survival, like Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. For those of you who took psychology, right? Your base level of survival. We need shelter. Electricity is kind of important. Although technically, if you had to, you could go without electricity for a while. You need food. You need water, right? And I know people who've been in this situation that actually had their water shut off and managed to figure out other ways to get water. So that's even negotiable. And you need your life-saving medications. Everything else you need to think about as um, uh, a luxury. I hate to use the word like that, but if you're in this survival mode, you have to think of it like that, right? So when I say 6 months, I mean 6 months of your bare necessities, your survival living. Okay. Update your resume, right? So if you've been working in the same job for 10 years, guess what? Resumes change and the trends change. In fact, I know people who are looking for jobs right now who told me that they're getting interviews with a virtual interviewer. It's literally a robot that's interviewing you in a lot of these big companies now. You don't even get a chance to interact with a human. That stinks for someone like me whose strength is in my interview. I can come in there and I can convince you that I'm going to be the best person for the job. A little harder to do that with a robot. That's happening on a lot of levels right now. So what else can you do? Enhance your skills. Maybe you haven't taken any trainings on the latest skills in your field. It's time to get going on that. You want to be at the top of that resume pile, right? Networking actively. Start getting ahead of this. If you work in one of these federal jobs, start talking to people who is hiring. Don't be that guy who's waiting to the layoff, because now you're in the pool with 15,000 other people, 30,000 other people, 100,000 other people, all trying to get that job. Get ahead of it. Create a budget. You want to start again this goes back to what I was saying before, thinking about what are my absolute necessities and what can I cut. That's Starbucks. Sorry, out. You can't do Starbucks anymore. If you absolutely have to have coffee, you're going to have to maybe think about getting the cheapest version of coffee that you can, unless you've got a huge savings, in which case this stuff's mostly not going to apply to you. You can probably ride it out for a while. But for most of us, middle class or so, yeah, you're probably switching to that cheapest coffee. I don't even know what the cheapest is right now. Is it chock full of nuts? That's one that actually was like, it's actually pretty tasty, chock full of nuts. They still make that. I haven't bought it in a while, but it was very affordable compared to other coffees, and it was actually pretty good. Exploring side gigs. Yes. Side hustles. Make sure you have multiple forms of revenue coming in. Sorry, I had an alert coming in up there. Multiple forms of revenue coming in. You should have already been doing this. I've been for 5 years now building multiple streams of revenue. If I lost my primary job right now, I still am not going to be able to cover all my bills. I might have enough to cover some of them and keep me afloat, but it's not enough. Always thinking about building multiple streams of revenue. In fact, most financial gurus will say to you that you should have 7 different forms of income coming in. 7. How many people out there right now watching this can say you've got 7 forms of income coming in? Let me think about this for a second. I'm not going to tell you all my income forms, but let me think about it. I got about 6 different forms of income coming in. You never stop, keep building it. Open a little LLC business and start thinking about what you can do with that LLC, right? If you've got a YouTube channel, maybe can you get it monetized? It's not going to be a ton of money, but it starts a process. Then maybe you do some affiliate marketing. Maybe you do a podcast and you can get some advertisers advertising on your podcast, right? All kinds of side gigs that you can build. Think about it. What skills do you have? Are you good at fixing houses? Maybe you can provide repairs to people in the neighborhood cheaper than what they would have to pay had they gone into Google and looked up people in the area, or Angie's List, or whatever people use this nowadays. Start thinking about your health insurance options, because here's the thing. Obama mandated it that we all have to have health insurance. Pretty darn expensive. So you need to know what's the minimum that you can get away with for your health conditions and your family's health conditions, and be able to have that coverage and not have to pay those fines. Research unemployment benefits. Okay, so it's been, hang on, I gotta think about this. Over 15 years since that incident happened to me, since I was unemployed. At that time, I was able to collect unemployment, but you need to know it's not going to be the full amount of your check. I think it was 2/3. I think it was 2/3, which meant that we had to take substantial cuts to our quality of life and luxuries and things like that. Develop a job search strategy. Do you even know, like, if you've been unemployed? Let me ask you this: for those of you who've been in the same job for 10 years or more, do you even know how people are finding jobs now? The last time I had to look for a job, it was, I think it was, the website was called monster.com. And I don't even know if that's still a thing. Do people use Indeed? I don't know. LinkedIn, is that another one that people use for networking? So start getting in the game there if you and research, like, how do people even get connected to jobs right now. Next one is take care of your mental health. I got super depressed when I was unemployed. It was really a tough time for me, and I don't look upon that time in my life with fondness. It doesn't feel good to realize how much weight I had gained, how horrible I felt about not bringing in adequate money for my family. So you need to start taking care of your mental health. Look at activities that are free and cheap, like walking, right? Or if you already know how to do exercises, can you do some exercises at home? Can you? What are some really low cost activities that you can do? Can you walk people's dogs in the neighborhood for a little income too? I just thought of that one. Building that diverse income stream, that's so huge. Tightening the budget, so huge. Stocking up. Okay, so as preppers, we should all be doing this already, right? Like, you should be copy canning. This is a perfectly appropriate time to dig into your stockpile if you're unemployed. You should have food stores, depending on your, if you live in a tiny apartment, I know you're limited there. But if if you've got some space, you should have some food stores. This is an emergency. This is an appropriate time to use some of your food stores to cut down on your food budget, right? If you are decent at gardening, where can I get some cheap garden seeds? Why don't you ask some of your friends? If somebody asks me around my neighborhood, I got garden seeds I can spare. I could probably help you out, So build a little garden. That's going to save you a little bit of money on your food. If you're a hunter, maybe you can fill your freezer, right? If you're a fisher, maybe you can fill your freezer. Fisherman. Think about these other ways that you can cut back on some of your food budget, right? Foraging, right? So that's also another way you can stay mentally healthy. Get out there and walk around and forage, and you're not only are you adding to your food, but adding to your food supply, but you're getting that fresh air and the sunshine. Reduce your debt. This is something you got to do ahead of time. This is why we talk about on this channel a lot. Don't spend money on your credit card that you don't need to, right? Don't walk into unemployment with $10,000, $15,000 in credit debt. You're really up the creek now. So pay that down while you can. Pay it down while you have the chance to do so. Again, building up that emergency savings, learning your self-sufficiency skills, home repairs, right? So I'm somebody who's not handy. I have to usually, if it's a pretty big size repair, I usually have to pay somebody else to do it because I'm just not good at that stuff. If you are, that's a great way to not only save money for yourself, but you can potentially market that out to other people and say, listen, I'm out of work. You got any work that needs to be done on your property, whatever. You'd be surprised. People are willing to help out with stuff like that. Even mowing lawns, right? Barter and trading. Now, I will say, technically, you need to know that bartering, you are supposed to claim on your taxes. What you do with that is between you and the IRS and God, okay? But learn how to use the barter system. Trade your tomatoes for somebody else's eggplant, and then claim it on your taxes, because I have to tell you to do that. Explore government assistance. Yes. So here's the thing. Most of you have been paying into these systems for a long time. I know it sucks swallowing our pride and saying, I need help. I get it. I know how much that sucks. Sometimes you hit a life emergency and you need a little bit of a leg up, right? And this includes your churches too. A lot of times churches will try to help people out, and they have limitations based on their budget, how big the church is, how wealthy that community is. That impacts those things. But, church might be able to help you pay one electric bill or something like that. Most of these churches are not going to pay your electric bill month after month. Trust me. Most of them are not going to pay your rent month after month. But some churches will do it like a one-time thing to help you get out of a jam. Okay. Here's the thing. If you're not a regular member of that church, you should probably volunteer. Like, hey, I'm willing to stack chairs after the service or clean up after the service. That's much more likely to get you a positive result, especially if you're not already an active member of that church. Sell unnecessary items. We all have clutter, right? I have a pretty giant knife collection. If I have to, I could start selling some of my knives. I don't need as many knives as I have. Maybe you have other stuff. I know one of the people in our community, I'm not going to name that person, came on my channel a while back and talked about when she was unemployed. For a while, she was living in her car. She started selling all of her silver coins for food. That's an appropriate use of your prep. That's why we say stack silver and gold and cash, because you're going to hit an emergency at some point in life. And that's exactly what that's for. So she did the exact right thing that you're supposed to do. She had an emergency, and her silver that she had been saving for an emergency, she used to buy food. That's prepping, folks. That's prepping. Sell anything unnecessary. If you're going to be unemployed, it's a great time to declutter. Learn other skills. We talked about that. Okay. Online courses. A lot of stuff's free right now, right? A lot of stuff you can learn a lot of skills just on YouTube, right? So instead of if you're unemployed, instead of sitting home and, feeling sorry for yourself like I did, I mean, I was trying to get a job. I also could have been putting more effort into learning some different skills, a little bit of basic home repair. I'm probably never going to be great at it, but I could have gotten better at it during that time if I'd used my time to do that, right? Or how to work on your car, or change your brake pads yourself, right? Like that's pretty basic stuff. Changing your own oil, right? Those are skills that most people could learn just from watching some YouTube videos. Increase your free certifications if you can. Again, that's stuff that will help build your resume and make you more competitive with everybody else that's going to be out there fighting for these jobs. Let's see. How about if you took Spanish or French in school, use that time to build up, to refresh yourself on those skills. Being a little bit of bilingual is also something that's marketable when you are trying to find a job, especially in certain communities, right? For a long time, I worked in a community where it was a huge Portuguese population. Now, I didn't know any Portuguese. I knew a little bit of Spanish, and there's some similarities in the language. So I was able to kind of use that to learn a little bit of conversational Portuguese, which actually helped at that time in the job that I was in. Don't ask me to repeat any of it. It was over 20 years ago. I don't remember any of it except obrigado, I think means thank you. Obrigado, if anybody remembers. Freelancing, yeah. So use your, there's things like Fiverr and Upwork. I know they don't pay a lot, but a little bit of income might help. Personal development, yep. Okay, good. Mentorship, yeah. See if you can find somebody that's willing to take you on as a volunteer to learn a new skill. Then maybe that turns into a job. All right. Let's go back to chat. Hopefully you guys left me some nice questions here or comments. Let's see what you got. I got to scroll way back here. Food banks. So I think I saw somebody mention food banks. Don't forget to utilize food banks. You'd be surprised, because I've worked at programs that access to those for my patients. You'd be surprised that there's some really good, high quality food at these food banks that get donated from all kinds of different sources. So maybe you're eligible for that. Don't be afraid to look into that. I know it sucks asking for help. I'm a prideful person too. I get it. Everybody's going to fall down at some point in your life. Everybody's going to hit a tough time at some point in your life. And we have to say, yeah, this sucks, but I'm going to humble myself and reach out for help if I need the help. All right. Did I go back far enough? Let's see. Angie, I think that's the last where I saw. Okay. Well, good. I hope your job is safe. Coffee first. I hope everybody's is. Yeah, here's a good question, Scott. I tweeted out at Elon Musk and Donald Trump a couple times on X. Why are they not auditing congressional budgets? Right? Like, so when you're a congressman, you have a staffing budget, you have a food budget, you have an office redecorating budget. You'd be surprised the perks that they get. Why is that not being audited? How much wasteful spending is there? Do you think that every senator that goes in to the US Senate needs to buy a new desk when the previous senator that exited left a really nice desk that was probably only 2 years old? Wasteful government spending. That's where it is, and that's where they should be auditing. How about auditing the military industrial complex? You think they'll ever do that? There's trillions unaccounted for in the Pentagon's black budget. Trillions. Yeah, I know a lot of people. I'm not going to get too much into that because you know what, YouTube is weird about this, but I knew a lot of people that were mandated to catch the spike to keep their jobs. I can't speak freely, or YouTube is probably going to just bury this stream. So I'll just say I don't think that people's employers should have mandated that. That should have been a personal decision. Does AI understand dad jokes? I don't know. AI seems to understand a lot more than we think, but it does make mistakes. Yeah, and people who are, so thank you for mentioning that too, Coffee First. People who are close to retirement, they're probably going to be okay. Like if you're close enough to retire, then you know, honestly, here's another way that they could be doing this. So I talked about how the private industry does these audits instead. Sometimes in the private industry, they'll say, hey, listen, we have to cut 5% of our workforce. And then some people who were like already eligible for retirement, but they were just working because they liked working, sometimes they'll say, I'll go, so that some young person who's got a baby can keep their job. That I would prefer that, to be honest with you, if they would do stuff like that. You know, if like let's say we say the FBI has to cut 10% of their workforce. I don't know exactly what the numbers are. There are people who are working for the FBI that could have retired 5 years ago, right? And if they give a choice of like, hey, we got to cut 10% of the workforce, you should retire rather than screw those young people who've got a baby on the way. If you were eligible for a retirement 5 years ago and you know somebody's going to lose a job, you should retire. Sorry, you don't have to agree with me on that. That's what I would do, right? I still have 14 years or so to go. But if I was past that point and I knew that I was eligible for full retirement and my leaving could save somebody else's job, I would leave. I think it's the humanitarian thing to do. And also with my experience, I can do something else in a heartbeat. I can go private. I can do, you know, there's all kinds of things that I could do once you have, in my field, that level of experience. Cheap coffee, how dare you? Well, all right. So do they still make the chock full of nuts? That's my question, right? Like, it's been so long. I haven't had to buy the cheap coffee in a while. Do they make it? Because it's actually really good. If they still make it, it's actually really good coffee. Kirkland coffee for my family. I've had Kirkland. It's not bad. Yeah, DoorDash and Uber, Uber Eats, you know, those are also good little side hustles. And if you're going to be unemployed for a while, you know, maybe do that till you can get something that's more permanent for you or within your field or whatever. But I know people who are doing that are making pretty decent money once you kind of figure out what are the right neighborhoods to hang around in, that tip well and that kind of stuff. You can do pretty well. Yeah, so Utah Mike mentions investment income. So this is why when people say, when we're talking about silver and gold and stuff like that, I tell you that I am also a fan. This is not financial advice, not a financial advisor, just telling you what Old Sarge does. I am also a fan of creating passive income by investing in dividend stocks, right? So I'm talking about companies like Coca-Cola, 3M, Caterpillar. AbbVie Pharmaceuticals. These are some of the stocks that I own. What a dividend is, if you don't know, is they give you some money back as a shareholder every quarter based on their profits, right? So your stock stays intact unless you sell it. So you're not losing any. Well, I mean, the market can go up and down. I shouldn't say it that way. You're not losing your shares of your stock, but you're getting some money back every quarter based on the money that that company made. And it, it might be a little bit, but over time, like if you've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, investing in dividend stocks, then you might have, a couple $100, maybe more coming in each month just as passive income, right? And this is, by the way, how a lot of the super wealthy are able to just basically not work. They just have so many dividend producing stocks that they just have money coming in all the time from these companies. Passive income, or mailbox money, if you want to call it mailbox money. Yeah, same thing. Virginia Bushcrafter. We're being a little bit tighter about our food budget. Looking at the price of things, what did it cost 5 years ago? Is that box of Oreos really worth $6? I guess it depends on how much you love Oreos. You know. By the way, if you have an Aldi's in your area, check out Aldi's, y'all. Check out Aldi's. It's a European grocery store. And I know everyone's going to say, buy American, buy American. You know what? We're all just trying to survive. Okay. Check out Aldi's. Aldi's is a European grocery store, and their prices are much lower than most American grocery stores. And they have very similar products. So if you like Oreos, there's probably some cookie at Aldi's that's very, very similar to Oreos. Good on you, Scott. Yeah, I know. Health insurance is expensive, y'all. Yep, I know. And if you need good health insurance, like I have a couple of health issues, it's going to be expensive. Hey, Wayne, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you checking in. No problem. Tuck 5v1, thank you for joining us. I think I didn't say hi to you earlier. Appreciate you. Ours does too, Tuck. We have to pay a lot of different fees to run a business. Both my wife and I run a business. That's part of my side hustle. And we have to pay a lot of money, actually, in business licensing every year. And then not only that, like any equipment I buy, they want to tax the crap out of me on that. So you get taxed. So here's the thing. Let's say I buy a laptop and a camera and a microphone for my LLC. Not only am I getting taxed at checkout on my sales tax, because I'm not one of these like YouTube channels that pretends that I'm a nonprofit. And sorry, threw a little dig at a couple channels out there that are scamming the system. Oh, did I say that out loud? I don't run my channel as a nonprofit, so I pay my taxes. But not only am I paying sales tax, but I have to pay tax again because I'm a business that bought this stuff from my business. Does that make any sense? Technically, double taxation is supposed to be illegal, but somehow it isn't. And yeah, we can get on a whole nother rant about that. Yeah, it gets so running a business does cost money. There's no way legally to do it. You got to pay to play. But our businesses do make money. I don't make a ton of money, but I do make money, and my wife makes money. So the key is, if you're going to open an LLC and start doing this stuff, just really start thinking about how am I going to make a profit in year one, even if it's a small profit. A lot of business models will teach like, hey, you don't have to make a profit till year 3. Well, if you're independently wealthy and you've got a huge trust fund to live off of, that's fine. For the rest of us, think about how am I going to make a profit in year one? Year one, got to walk away with money in the green, money in the black. So if you can't do that, my thoughts on this is don't open that LLC until you've got a good business plan that you're going to be able to do that. Food storage can be a lifesaver when you are out of work or when times are lean, 100%. Wayne says his food prep saved him a couple times. So yeah, since you shared, I don't mind sharing as well, Wayne. When I went through my divorce, that was probably one of the second toughest times for me in terms of financial. I was having to live pretty darn lean. I've talked about this before on the channel. I literally had to go around my house and unplug appliances because that like 3 cents of trickle electricity was worrying me. That's how financially strapped I was. Eventually I got out of it, right? So like you have to remember too. So here's the thing. Actually, I'm gonna come back to that at the end. That's gonna be my ending message. That's called guerrilla gardening right there, Tuck. And I'm not gonna rat on you if you do it. Yeah, so be careful. Burpee Yoga Uncle says many folks are also doom spending. Okay, so be careful with this, right? So like if you're going to make some investments in your preps, stay within your budget. And right now, if you're in this boat where you're worried about possibly losing your job, make those preps make sense, right? So you maybe don't need a gas mask as much as you need a good food supply right now, right? Make it make sense, okay? There you go. Coffee First says she started a Facebook bartering page for her area. I love it. So Wayne says you're even supposed to claim money you stole on taxes. I love it. I'm in the process of doing my taxes for my LLC. Man, it's a bugger. Like, so those of you who don't know a business, don't own a business, and you get to do like the simple form, to do like the long complex deductions and everything, it is a booger. Like it takes me weeks to do this. And yeah, I'm coming up with a plan to streamline it so it won't take me as long next year, but it's stressful just doing that. I'm not going to post that one. Coffee First. Churches give food. I've gotten food there a lot. Yeah, so don't be afraid to ask, especially if you're a member of that congregation. If you're not, again, my recommendation is if you don't usually go to that church, volunteer to clean or to work something for that church, whatever they need, stacking chairs or whatever. That will go a long way towards them being willing to help you, as opposed to a stranger knocking on the door saying, I need $65 million to fight my war. Did I say that out loud? Sorry. It would go a long way if you're giving something back to the person that's giving to you. Just can't control that id tonight. Sorry. Thank you, Coffee First. Yeah, if getting anything of value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to check in the description down below for some discount codes that I think you will like. For those of you who are watching on Instagram, we got a live chat going over on YouTube. That's what I'm responding to. And if you go over to the YouTube channel and go down to the video in the description, there are discount codes for a lot of things that preppers find helpful. Thank you, Coffee First. Angie says it right there. 6 months of being able to pay your bills will go a long way towards reducing your stress and helping you to be financially prepared for situations like this. Learning ASL, American Sign Language. So I tried a couple times because I am kind of a kinetic learner, and I only got so far with American Sign Language. That's something that probably would have been, if I got good at it, would have been handy in my field. Writing gigs. Yes. I love that. That's awesome, Wayne. I love that. So $150 for writing a real estate listing for basically touring a house for 40 minutes. That's nice work. Good job. Yes, Wayne said buying and reselling. This is one of the things that I did do when I was unemployed. I did a lot of eBaying to generate some extra money, and I had my own little tricks that worked, right? And I also, believe it or not, like I went around and collected cans and scrap metal, and I recycled too. Not a ton of money in that, but every little bit helped. That was like gas money that helped me to kind of get around to do some other stuff. So, recycling, scrap metal, aluminum, things like that. Buying and selling on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, things like that, flea markets. Just kind of get a feel for what the normal going price is, and then you have to find it lower than that. Good ballpark is like if you can find it 10% or less than what you think you can sell it for, it might be worth giving it a try. So I did it with books. That was how when I was unemployed, that was what I was doing, is I was buying or finding gift books that people were giving away that were from famous authors that I knew I could sell on eBay, like romance author Danielle Steele, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, like big names that I know I could resell. If I could get those cheap, I'd turn around and I'd sell them 20% higher. Sometimes I got lucky, I got 100% higher. But that was just basically generating a little bit more money coming in and out. Stop doing hobbies that don't make money, redirect that energy into hobbies that make money. Yep. I'll be honest with you. One of my 6 or 7 passive or income streams is I do what's called swing trading. It's a little different than day trading. Day trading is very risky. It's when you're literally like buying a stock at one point during the day and then selling it later on in the day if it goes up. Or there's ways to do other things like short selling stuff. I can't even get into that. It's way too complicated. Swing trading is more, and by the way, there's restrictions on how much you can do that. There's legal restrictions because some people got really good at it. What I do is called swing trading, whereas you buy a stock and you're holding it for a few days, and then when it sells, when it's higher, you sell it. There's risk to this, folks. Sometimes the stock doesn't go back up. I've gotten burned a few times. Overall, I've made more money than lost more money. Like I average about 40% on my returns. Doesn't quite get to Nancy Pelosi standards. I think she's at 55%, which is like beats everybody on the market. But hey, 40% is pretty good. Like taking a dollar bill and turning it into $1.40. That's pretty good. So that's called swing trading. Now, here's the thing. I've been doing this for a long time, and there's many times that I got burned. You have to burn to learn. It's like playing poker, right? How do you play poker for money? You have to be willing to lose money to learn, and that makes you better at it. It's the same thing with some of these things that you can do on the stock market. And by the way, you're going to pay taxes on those too, because that's all, like every swing trade, you're paying capital gains tax. So I may say I made 40%, but then the government's taking a chunk of that too. Yeah, government auctions. Sometimes you can get some good deals and turn around and resell it. Smart advice. Yeah, I think there's definitely a big financial shift coming. My hope is still that I think we're moving towards a better financial period for the United States. We're just, because of all these layoffs and stuff right now, I think things are going to be crazy for a lot of people right now. You got an 8 cents dividend. Hey, it's something. It's 8 cents. We buy and eat whatever is in season. That's smart too. Yep, because that's usually what's going to be on sale. If you found Mike, if you found eggs for $3 a dozen right now, you are doing awesome. That's a fantastic price. Tuck says we use Aldi's a lot. Past couple of weeks, their prices have risen at our local store. Sorry to hear that. We have some people, Utah Mike, and actually the people that we use give us really good financial advice, have definitely saved us money over the years. Yeah, so there's the thing. So people will say, why do I want to go and spend $300 to $1,000 on a financial advisor? Check their reputations, but a good financial advisor, sometimes the information you'll get out of there, you'll do even better than that $1,000 that you spent. It can definitely be worthwhile. The one that we use, who I'm not going to name, they've done us a solid several times, and have we've done good with ours. And we got ours from a really good referral from somebody who was like, hey, these people are awesome. So like that word of mouth thing, that ask around before you just like look on Google, like financial advisor in my area or financial. Don't do that unless you want to read all their reviews, but know that sometimes people fake those reviews too. Word of mouth, much better. Well, there you go. Bacon's going to give a shout out to his Chad Atkins CPA. All right, Wayne, have a great night. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, don't be afraid to use those food and clothing banks. Don't be afraid to shop at places like Salvation Army and Goodwill. If you haven't had to get a new job in 10 years, your suit, if we're going for interviews, it might be outdated. Your business attire might be outdated. check Goodwill, right? Because a new suit can cost you a lot of money. Check Goodwill. You'd be surprised. Sometimes people buy one and then they use it one time and then they donate it. Sometimes somebody passes away and their family just brings all their clothes to Goodwill. And it might be stuff that's like really new. Sometimes there's stuff in there with tags on it. So, if you're going to be interviewing and it's a business job, you're supposed to go to the interview dressed for the job. So if you're dressing for a business job and your suit is a little bit outdated, it does hurt you a little bit. So I hate to say it, but yeah, your appearance does matter in those things too. So go and, see if you can get something that's a little bit more contemporary, before you go to those interviews. Well, thank you, William. I appreciate that. All right. Stay busy is a good one. Yep, absolutely. $1 saved is $1 earned. Good advice right there. Thank you. Smart man. All right. Then first speak. Let me read this one here. Yeah, absolutely. So lots of good advice in the chat, folks. All right, this has been a long one. We're going on about an hour. I am going to start to wind this one down. I want to say thank you to the mods and everybody in the chat for all your contributions. Some great suggestions there. If you're in the boat where you just recently lost your job, then I want you to think about when I was without a work for 6 months, I got pretty low. Probably one of the lowest points in my life. I got pretty depressed. You don't stay there, right? It's a temporary situation. And please remember that. As low as you may feel when you're out of work, you got to keep thinking positive that you will find the right job. You will dig out of this hole and you're going to get back on your feet. Okay. Because I've been in a couple of situations in my life where money got pretty darn tight. Always come back from it. Always come back from it. Mindset matters. So remember that. Okay. Don't let that experience of being temporarily out of work pull you so far down into the depression that you make a permanent decision. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? Because you matter. All right, folks, let's kill it with that. And I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you to Instagram as well for tuning in. And remember, if you're watching this on Instagram, I do highly encourage you to join the chat over on YouTube. We have great chat going over there every week. It's a great community, okay? Hey, folks, keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge. Have a great weekend, everybody.